This past weekend, Disney released their 60th animated film, Encanto. So over the next 3 days, I'll be ranking all 60 Disney animated films from worst to best. Here are the bottom 20. Coming in at last place at number 60 is Chicken Little. This movie is the meanest and most cynical of all these movies. I don't know what they were thinking. Jokes about how you have hate mail, you have more hate mail, your hate mail box is full, teaching the child viewers of this film that bullying is okay, and all these adults are harassing a child and his father. These grown adults are harassing a child and his father. On top of that, the movie can't even keep its story straight. Chicken Little thinks the sky is falling, and then Chicken Little joins a baseball team, and then aliens invade. It's just a string of bad ideas with even worse execution, and Disney should be ashamed of it. Number 59, Home on the Range. This has the same problem as Chicken Little in that the movie is just unpleasant, but at least this one can keep its story straight, even if its story is completely stupid. Every character in this film is loud and annoying, the villain is stupid and forgettable. There's a reason that Pixar kind of outshined Disney in the early 2000s, and this film was a big factor in that. Number 58, The Wild. I know this isn't technically part of the Disney animated films library, but Melody Time wasn't on Disney+, so I substituted it for this one. Really, it's just a ripoff of Finding Nemo in Madagascar. The animation is very, very cheap for a Disney movie, especially around 2006, and it looks like a knockoff movie that you'd find on Netflix or something. The only interesting part about it was William Shatner as the villain, but that's it. The rest of it's very forgettable and ugly to look at. Number 57, Fantasia. Now, I've never been a huge fan of either Fantasia movie, but I can see why people like it. It's just not for me. I appreciate it more from a studying perspective, the way that one appreciates going to a museum or a classical music concert, which is essentially what this is. I can appreciate the effort that was put into it, but other than Sorcerer's Apprentice, Night on Bald Mountain, and maybe the one with the dinosaurs, there's not a lot for me here. Number 56, Saludos Amigos. Personally, I don't think this one should even count as a movie because it's only 45 minutes, but it was on the list, so I have to include it. I know the word propaganda has a negative connotation, but that's what this movie is. It was released as positive, flattering propaganda during World War II to try and boost morale with South American countries and get them on our side, and really, this movie is basically somebody's travel slides. Number 55, Fantasia 2000. Same thing as Fantasia, I appreciate it from a filmmaking perspective more than I do an entertainment perspective, though I do think this one is slightly better, mostly because of the technological advances. It's kind of weird that they set Pomp and Circumstance to Noah's Ark, starring Donald Duck, and a lot of the attempts at humor from the celebrities don't work, but I put it higher simply because it just looks prettier. Number 54, Three Caballeros. It's fun seeing Donald Duck in something, but again, nothing super memorable about this movie, just more wartime morale boosting. Number 53, Dumbo. I do like that the story is very simple and can get quite dark at points, but this just isn't one that I'm going to watch again of my own volition. Number 52, Bambi. Basically an animated nature documentary with talking animals. This film is more educational than it is entertaining, but at least they had the guts to kill Bambi's mom and make one of the most shocking deaths in Disney history. Number 51, Fun and Fancy-Free. The only thing I remember about this movie is the Jack and the Beanstalk with Mickey Mouse, and that's it. The live-action segments kind of distract from it a bit. Enjoyable movie, just not very memorable. Number 50, Melody Time. It's great to teach kids about American tall tales, in this case Pecos Bill and Johnny Appleseed, but overall, just not a very memorable film for me. Number 49, Ralph Breaks the Internet. Basically a commercial for Disney's properties, though there is some fun with it, but overall the plot just isn't interesting. They made Vanellope unbearably annoying, and the message is awful. Hey, you want to stay in this really dangerous place where you could possibly die? Go ahead. Translation, let your kids explore the internet unsupervised or you're a bad parent. Number 48, Lady and the Tramp. It's cute. It's got one of the most iconic sequences in Disney animation with the Bella Notte, but there's not really a lot to the plot. It's just kind of a cute story. Number 47, Cinderella, or more accurately, Mice. Because most of this movie is focused on the mice. Cinderella is barely in it, and Cinderella really isn't even that interesting of a character. This is more of a, look what we can do with animation film than it was entertainment. Number 46, Sword in the Stone. The main problem with this, the Sword in the Stone, is an afterthought. The title, the main thing in the title, is an afterthought. It's introduced at the beginning, and then brought in at the last second. The step in between is King Arthur before he became King Arthur. And this could be good, but the way they do it isn't very good. And if you want to see how it's done right, just watch the BBC show Merlin, because it did what this show was trying to do, but much, much better. Number 45, The Aristocats. No strong lean towards this one either way. Plot's not very interesting. The animation is not up to the usual Disney standard, but the music's good. Number 44, Fox and the Hound. As just kind of okay as this movie is, there's still some heart and emotion to it. There are moments when they let you feel the gravitas of the story and feel for the characters, but overall, the film as a whole is not very memorable. Number 43, Oliver and Company. It's a weird idea doing Oliver Twist set in modern-day New York City. Well, modern for 1988. And having some of the characters be animals, but some aren't, that's just weird. Like, the main characters are animals, except for this character is a human. Like, make up your minds. Billy Joel gives a good performance, but you can see why this was the last film released before the Disney Renaissance. You just kind of had to get it out there before Little Mermaid. Number 42, The Rescuers. The animation's not that great, plot's just kind of okay, villain's not that memorable. That's alright, it's cute, it exists. No strong feelings towards this one. Number 41, Black Cauldron. Now, I think this film gets way more hate than it deserves, but it's still not good. Main character is whiny and unlikable, Gurgi is annoying, but John Hurt as the villain is fantastic. There's some great dark imagery, but I can see why people forgot about it. Number 40, Rescuers Down Under. Plot-wise, it's the same as Rescuers, but with trying to rescue a boy instead of a girl. But George C. Scott as the villain is great. This was the second film in the Disney Renaissance, and it's also the weakest film in the Disney Renaissance, because other than the villain, nothing about it really stands out. Number 39, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. This is an adorable, simple movie. It's got very likable, innocent characters. It's harmless, nothing much to it. Number 38, Winnie the Pooh from 2011. Pretty much the same thing as Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Cute, harmless, nothing much to it, except this one is actually really funny. There are a lot of quick jokes and gags that surprised me with how funny this movie was. And there are one or two songs in this movie that are actually really good. Number 37, 101 Dalmatians. Cute puppies doing cute puppy things. The only really memorable part about it is Cruella de Vil. Number 36, The Great Mouse Detective. This is a really creative homage to Sherlock Holmes. You got Vincent Price as the villain, who does these very big animated gestures, and he just has a delightful performance. I like this film fine. It's just not one of the top tier ones for me. Number 35, Sleeping Beauty. The only interesting character in this movie is Maleficent. She's animated well, her voice acting is well done, and she just enjoys being evil for the sake of being evil. But she's the only memorable part of this movie. All the other main characters are pretty thin. The prince only has like 6 lines, and his last line is "Goodbye, Father," and he doesn't speak again for the last 20 minutes of the film. So when your standout character isn't the main character, that's a problem. Number 34, Ichabod and Mr. Toad. It's great to teach kids about classic literature, especially from other cultures. I actually think this is one of the better movies on this mid-tier list. The stories are fun, the horseman's really scary, I really enjoyed this one. Number 33, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Same problem with Sleeping Beauty. The main character is boring. When your most memorable character is the villain and the side characters, the dwarves who have personality, who are literally their names, that's a problem. But if it weren't for this movie, we wouldn't have the great Disney movies, so we have to acknowledge it. Number 32, The Jungle Book. Personally, I think this movie should be more exciting than it is. It's still enjoyable, though. I like Baloo, it's got fun songs, but it's not top tier. Number 31, Alice in Wonderland. Creative visuals, fun adventure, memorable characters, not much else. Number 30, Pocahontas. This is one of the weaker Renaissance films. I never really got into it. The villain's pretty generic. Only 1 or 2 of the songs in the movie stand out. It's fine, I guess. Number 29, Bolt. A movie for kids who like talking animal movies. The plot doesn't really have high stakes. There's no sense of urgency, and Miley Cyrus was miscast because she was like 17 or 18 when she was cast in this movie, but the character she's playing is like 9 or 10, and so it sounds like a 17 or 18-year-old's voice coming out of somebody who's supposed to be 9 or 10. Like, I get why they cast her, because when this movie came out, Hannah Montana was like their big thing. Like, she was their biggest star, but they cast her more for namesake than they did because she was actually fit for the role. Number 28, Dinosaur. This is definitely ambitious for Disney because this was actually their first movie to be entirely CGI if you don't count Pixar, which for the most part, the CGI still holds up. The score of the movie is fantastic, the opening scene is very exciting, and then the animals start talking. This movie shouldn't have had any dialogue. I think score and visuals would have made this movie really stand out, but it just became another talking animal movie. It's very reminiscent of The Land Before Time. Number 27, Frozen 2. I like most of the songs in this movie, but the plot just isn't interesting. It spends so much time reminding the audience of things they liked about the first movie by referencing scenes and things from the first movie in the hopes that their love of the first movie will blind them to the weaker plot of this one. This is just a cash grab sequel with very little effort put into it. And also, let's take Olaf, who was okay in the first one, and then just give him a bigger role and make him very annoying. They did the same thing they do with the Minions, where they take, like, the comic relief character but give them a bigger role in the sequel, and it ruins them. Number 26, Raya and the Last Dragon. There are two big problems with this movie. The first being that it's almost 2 hours, which is very long for an animated Disney film, and yet it's still not enough time to develop these characters, of which there are many. The film jumps from one thing to another very quickly, and it gets hard to keep track of what's going on. I compare it to the live-action Avatar The Last Airbender movie, where they try to squeeze an entire season of TV into 2 hours. And that's what this feels like. This is a very interesting world with very rich lore and mythology, but it would have worked better as a TV show. The second problem is the mixed messages. Throughout the movie, we're told, don't judge others, prejudice is bad, learn to trust people. And then when you let your guard down and trust them, they betray you. So the message is lost. Number 25, Beauty and the Beast. The animation in this movie is gorgeous, the songs are great, but it's Stockholm Syndrome message I just can't get behind. And also, the prince was cursed at like age 10 for obeying stranger danger. Why did the servants get cursed? No one remembers the prince. There's a lot of plot holes in this movie. Number 24, Hercules. Really fun songs. James Woods is great as the villain, but the plot is just Superman. A being with godlike powers sent to Earth is raised by farmers, learns he has powers, and learns lessons throughout the film. It's Superman in Greek mythology. Yeah. Number 23, The Little Mermaid. Except for Ursula, all of the characters in this movie are pretty bland, except for Sebastian. But the songs are fantastic, and the animation is spectacular. Number 22, Atlantis the Lost Empire. This was so close to greatness. It has a fantastic setup with great mythology, but the last third, it all kind of falls apart. There's also a lot of weird tone shifts. It's trying to be a more serious movie, but then it also has really out-of-place kiddie humor. And number 21, Pinocchio. One of the few movies from the Golden Age where the main character is actually interesting. Unlike Snow White, Pinocchio actually grows and learns throughout the film. He's relatable, he makes mistakes, he learns lessons, he actually has a character arc, and this movie's pretty terrifying at some parts too. Number 20, Robin Hood. Very fun movie with great songs, great characters, and a really good story. Number 19, Tarzan. For the most part, I like this movie. It has a good story, has a lot of emotion, has well-written characters, but I think that the Phil Collins songs were overused. There are certain scenes where a score alone would have been much more effective, and Rosie O'Donnell was annoying. Number 18, Peter Pan. A fun, whimsical story that is timeless. What kid doesn't love this story? It's a fantastical world with fun and memorable characters. Number 17, Brother Bear. This is a very sweet movie with a heartfelt ending, but again, much like Tarzan, certain scenes would have had more emotional weight had there just been score instead of Phil Collins. Number 16, Mulan. Other than Eddie Murphy as Mushu and Donny Osmond's musical number, what do people actually remember about this movie? Honestly. The villain's kind of generic, and the story, while it is great, isn't as good as the other ones on this list, but it is good to see a Disney kind of princess who actually has an interesting character arc and isn't super cookie cutter. Number 15, Hunchback of Notre Dame. One of the darkest, most mature Disney movies ever. Within the first 5 minutes, we have murder, attempted infanticide, and the villain is one of the darkest Disney's ever made. Themes of lust, murder, corruption, typical feel-good Disney stuff. And then you have the gargoyles, who give the movie an odd tone shift. But the animation in this movie is gorgeous, the scope is massive. They just needed to get the tone right. Number 14, The Princess and the Frog. All the characters in this movie are very well written. The songs are great, the villain is very scary and charismatic. It's a shame this movie didn't do better, because I'd like to see more 2D animated films from Disney. Number 13, Frozen. This does kind of break the traditional Disney mold and kind of poke fun at it in a self-aware way. The surprise villain is well concealed and shocking. They do the true love message in a new and interesting way. But what holds this back a bit is Olaf is a one-joke character who wears thin for me very quickly, and the scenes with the rock trolls feel unnecessary and slow the film down. Number 12, Zootopia. A very unique film that tells this message in a clever way with a good mystery and great cast, but it is very heavy-handed. Number 11, Wreck-It Ralph. Disney's take on video games is well done and hilarious. The details and everything, with the little Easter eggs for video game fans are fun, but I don't like Vanellope. I find her very annoying. Number 10, Tangled. Fun adventure movie with a great villain who rivals even Frollo from The Hunchback, like almost reaches the heights of Frollo, and very great songs as well. Number 9, Lilo and Stitch. 1 part E.T., 1 part Men in Black, all hearts. There's a lot of heart and effort put into this movie, and having the focus be on 2 sisters is a new different thing from Disney, because this predates Frozen by about 5 or 6 years. The Hawaiian setting is very well done, with backgrounds looking like watercolor paintings, and the music is fantastic. Number 8, Treasure Planet. Treasure Island in space, and it's very creative. Creative characters, the ways they change things up enough to fit the setting are clever. There's little references to other sci-fi movies, and the animation is stellar, as is the score. Number 7, Moana. One of the most fun adventures from Disney with a great cast and great songs. Number 6, fittingly enough, is Big Hero 6. What makes this one stand out is we actually get to spend time with the character they kill off, so it actually has emotional weight when it happens. It also has a fun cast of characters and a lot of well-written character growth. Not to mention adorable Baymax, who's the Winnie the Pooh of the movie. Number 5, Aladdin. Of course, we get Robin Williams as the genie, one of the most iconic performances of all time. The main character is very different than the typical Disney male character. He usually doesn't get a lot of personality. Like, Aladdin actually feels like a really well-written character. He's not like the other Disney males who are just kind of there. They just kind of exist. They're plot devices. Like, he's an actual character, and he's well done. Number 4, The Lion King. I know, it's Hamlet with lions. There's not a lot. It's not the most original plot, but the scope is amazing. Everything about this movie is huge. It has one of the most hard-hitting deaths in Disney, some of the best songs made for a Disney movie, and one of the best Disney villains of all time. But quick, before I give you my top 3, share your ranking of your top 20 Disney animated films. Obviously, we're going to disagree. Our list is going to be very different, but that's what makes this fun. Number 3, Encanto. A very imaginative, bright, vibrant film. The main character is very different than the typical Disney heroine. She doesn't wake up perfect like most of them do. In fact, her I Want song is about how she is flawed. She does feel out of place in her family. She compares herself to other family members and feels insecure. There's a great story with a great message and fantastic songs from Lin-Manuel Miranda. Number 2, Emperor's New Groove. Probably the most out-there film Disney has put out. Because for one, the main character starts off super selfish and unlikable, which is very different than the other Disney main characters you're supposed to like right off the bat. Yzma and Croc are hilarious, and considering this movie was plagued with production issues and tons of last-minute changes, it's a miracle this turned out as great as it did. But my number 1 Disney movie of all time is Meet the Robinsons. Probably the most emotional animated Disney film ever. Has a very fun, creative vision of the future, lots of great third-act twists, and a fantastic message for everybody, so it comes in at number 1. So go ahead and give me your top 20 Disney animated films, and I will see you in my next video.